name is Naomi Callahan. I'm a lifestyle coach for Premier Community Health. It's my pleasure to be here today. This is such a fabulous facility. I'm really glad to be here. If you would raise your hand, if you feel comfortable, who currently has a financial plan? Yeah. Who had a financial plan 10 years ago? Anyone 20 years ago working towards that retirement, IRA, health plan? Why do we make a health plan, a financial plan? We make one because we want to have the tools, the resources, the success, so when we get to retirement, we have a place where we feel confident, we feel ready. And so in that same regard, I'd like to think about making a health plan. You know, I grew up in an era where we had microwave dinners, a lot of macaroni and cheese. We didn't really talk a lot about how what we ate affected our wellness. So I wouldn't expect that 10 years ago, many people had a health plan. Maybe a financial plan was on the table more. But when we think about the benefits of the financial retirement plan or the financial plan, in the same vein, I'd like to give you a couple of tools, things to think about today that you can take away so that you feel comfortable at the end creating some sort of plan that will help you with some of the things that we'll be working through our activities today. And with that, I'll be using an acronym called LEAN. Has anyone heard of LEAN before? You can see it stands for lifestyle, education, attitude, and nutrition. So we'll have bits and pieces of each of those for you to be able to visualize what it is for your health plan that you'd like to work for. Unfortunately, I don't want to start with bad news, but unfortunately I feel like in the United States we come to aging and health in a place where it's kind of we expect that maybe we will have more immobility. We'll be taking more medications. We'll have more chronic disease. And so the table has kind of been set in that way that in many people's minds, it's an inevitability. So some of the things about the United States. In the United States, we'll just do it that way. Currently for what we consider our older adults, 80% of us take at least one prescription, and 35% of the US aging population takes 5 or more prescription drugs. We've all seen the commercials, we know how readily available lots of those things are, but in reality, compared to other countries, we are 2 times more likely to be spending more money, more likely to have chronic disease and obesity rates, which then leads into our risk factors for chronic disease. And when I say chronic disease, that means a lot of different things. It could be diabetes, it could be heart disease, it could be stroke. And in that vein of chronic disease, there have been lots of different areas of research for why those things happen. But across all of those things, and including Alzheimer's, including depression, there has been one risk factor across all of those. Anyone want to venture a guess what that one risk factor has been shown to be? It's kind of surprising. It is our waist size. Our waist size, measured at the belly button, has been shown to be anywhere from raising our blood pressure, our blood sugar, I mentioned diabetes, heart attack, stroke, and things like arthritis, Alzheimer's, depression, and mood disorders. We used to not pay attention to our waist size. We would talk about body shape, we may talk about overall weight, but does anyone remember the BMI chart and how, yes, everyone hated that BMI chart. Why? Because it told all of us that we were too heavy. In reality, that BMI chart did not take into consideration your body composition. So we've started using a tape measure around the waist in order to include waist size as one of those predictors. When we talk about waist size, what does it mean to have an out-of-range waist size? For females, measured at the belly button, it's 35 inches or less. Guys, you get to go to 40, so 40 inches or less for the men. Both of those, regardless of gender, you want your waist to be smaller than your hips. Again, those together, and I'm speaking especially to the guys when you buy your pant size, and we're not talking about pant size, it's measured at the belly button. So there are things that we can do to address both our feeling about our health and nutrition, as we've talked a little bit about the increased nature of prescription drugs and chronic disease in the United States. There are some things that are out of our control. But for those things that are within our control, I want to use this model of LEAN, which I mentioned at the beginning: lifestyle, exercise, attitude, and nutrition. I'm not going to go in order, but I will do all four. So for those people who are like the bullet point folks, I will get there. First, let's talk about attitude. Sometimes we mention this as our mindset, the way that we think about our health, ourselves, and our future. And this is where I want to come back to the card that you chose at the beginning. If you pull that out and think about these types of questions, when I think about my future, that could be 5, 10, 20 years from now. What does that future look like? What does it feel like? Or how do I feel in that future? Where am I? Now, maybe you're in Paris. You chose your Eiffel Tower. But in that final one, what are you able to do? Let's dream to a place where we're not looking at immobility and prescription drugs and chronic disease. But if we were to get into that mindset and have that attitude of what can I do for the future, what am I able to do? Let's dream up that a little bit. So for people who chose the card, would anyone feel comfortable sharing why you chose the card that you did?
I like dogs.
Dogs bring you happiness?
I get a lot of exercise with my dog.
Okay. You currently have a dog?
I do.
Just one?
Just one.
Do you see more in your future? Good. Anybody else?
Well, I love flowers, and I've actually already got several little gardens, and wouldn't mind more if it would rain more. I would definitely consider
Yes.
a challenge this year.
Yes. And so the idea of gardening, beautification of your home, how does that inspire you to be healthy in your future?
I think being outside helps me a lot, because when I'm inside, I think I tend to get in trouble. And outside keeping busy.
Yes.
Probably healthier.
Being out, being active, being outside. It's good for our physical and mental well-being. Yeah. Anybody else?
We like to cycle everywhere.
Yeah. You're bicyclists, huh?
If we can, we take the bike instead of the car.
Mm-hmm.
That's our motto anyway.
Your mode of transportation is 2 wheels instead of 4.
Yes.
Good. Anybody else?
I picked the piano. I have a baby grand piano.
You
that I
do?
can play, but I love listening to music all the time. I walk a lot, so I'm always listening to music. And during the workday, I usually have music on.
And what does music do for you?
It makes me move faster sometimes,
Okay.
depending on what music I'm playing to. It reminds me of fond memories, sad memories. Keeps me motivated to keep moving, and just brings all kinds of thoughts. Makes me think of things maybe I forgot.
Yeah, the sense memory of listening to different songs. The power of music. Yes, yes. Anyone else want to share? Travel, yeah. That's on a lot of people's retirement list, is making it around the globe in different areas. Yeah. So in order to get there, setting our sights in a way that we are able to do it. I talked about the immobility piece of it. When we think about being able to reach our goals, there's lots of ways to get there, and exercise is one. E for exercise. However, I don't want to just focus on, sometimes exercise can be kind of a harsh word for people. If I say exercise, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
The gym.
The gym, sure. Any pictures of the bodybuilders or marathon runners? A lot of times exercise has the connotation of something that's really strenuous that maybe perhaps is out of my reach at this stage. So I'd like to couch it more in the idea of movers versus sitters. Okay? If I am a mover, that means I'm getting up out of my outside and I'm going into my garden, as you mentioned. I'm putting on the music and I'm perhaps moving quicker or I'm dancing. I'm getting up out of my chair to take my dog for a walk. So all of these ways of thinking about movement instead of just exercise are the holistic way to consider that. And it's been shown, just so you know, the statistics that I'm using are all from the Dr. Sears Wellness Institute. So when we become movers instead of sitters, there's a lower risk of Alzheimer's. Again, that was mentioned at the beginning as well. Improved eye and vision health, gum health. Our skin, which is our largest organ in our body, becomes healthier. And of course, that heart becomes stronger. It's also good for our gut and joint health. I could give you a whole presentation just on this one slide on the benefits of physical activity and exercise. But if we're going to think about having a health plan, if we're looking at exercise, let's break that down a little bit more into 3 components. So I'll get there, sorry. You mentioned going to the gym. So if we're going to have exercise, we have to actually make a plan to do it. So much of the time we say, you know, I really want to go for a walk. I'd really like to go to the gym. And we say this on Sunday. And then it becomes Thursday, and I'm like, I haven't been to the gym at all, right? So making time to create that plan for your week is important. Whether that's going to a local gym, you're all good, or it's a home gym, having access. Does everyone have access to a place to go for physical activity? Is there a community center here?
There's the Y.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Just having, access to things. Also, the hiking trails in the Dayton Metro Parks are fantastic. If you have not, there's so many in this area in particular. A lot of them are dog friendly as long as you're keeping it on that leash. Making sure that you take advantage of things that are in your area. But more than just the physical activity, we want to make it a lifestyle, so that we're moving every single day. Of course, there are times when we're sick or we're injured. We're not talking about that in particular. But every day, getting up out of our chair, moving for at least 30 minutes is the goal. And when we do that, we break it down into these 3 areas. So we don't want to do the same physical activity every single day. We want to incorporate strength, endurance, and flexibility. Does anyone have ideas on strength activities? It's kind of a hint there, but anyone participate in weightlifting? A little bit? Hand weights, kettlebell, bands. As if anyone has ever done physical therapy, which of a lot of us as we age have some joint things, we have to go to physical therapy. Using those bands can be counting as a strength activity. We want to be able to have stronger muscles for our balance, for being able to get up off the floor. Sometimes that becomes an issue as our joints go. Having a strong core is a big piece of that. Endurance. So when I say endurance, does that trigger any activities for you guys? How about your cycling? How long do you go when you're a cyclist?
It depends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We can go a couple, 20 miles.
20 miles.
Just do 2 miles.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That would be a definite endurance if we're going for 20 miles. Yeah. So endurance is good for our heart health. So when we are working, the standard is we want to have at least 20 minutes of physical activity at a time. So when we're getting to that 20 minutes minimum, anything above and beyond that, with our heart rate increased, is going to count as some endurance activities. It's obviously is going to make your heart stronger, but it also is pumping the blood all throughout your extremities, which means that your blood flow is getting a lot better, which then affects burning of your blood sugar, your cholesterol goes down, your mental health becomes more clear, all with just some simple endurance activities. Things other than cycling could be just going for a walk in a hilly place. You want to be getting that heart rate elevated. There are standards for heart rate elevation. Does anybody use a watch, a physical watch? Yeah. That could be one way to do it. There's also a formula which, if you're interested at the end, I'd be happy to share that with you. Last but not least is that flexibility. This one gets ignored all the time. So I've heard it said that for every 10 years that we age, we need to increase the time that we stretch another 10 minutes each day. So does anyone stretch every day? Like, I don't. You do? Yes.
My chiropractor insists on it.
Yes.
It has helped.
So if you're stretching every day, do you notice a difference in the way that you're able to be more mobile?
If I kind of like slack off of the evening, my lower back will hurt. So the stretches really help.
Yes. Yeah. Recommendations from chiropractor is one. I keep going back to the physical therapist. Sometimes we go and we have an injury and we do what they tell us to do for 6 weeks and then we're like, done with that. I don't need to do that anymore. When in reality, those stretching activities could be really good. Now, what happens when we age is some of the muscle fibers become a little more stiff. We can't bend over quite as much. We're more prone to injury and to falls as we are less and less flexible. So, doesn't mean that you have to do like a 60-minute yoga routine. However, that would be amazing. Just 5 to 10 minutes in the morning, 5 to 10 minutes in the evening. There's lots of YouTube videos that you could do. And there's some that you don't have to get down on the floor for. So if that's an issue with joints, there are lots and lots of resources. But as we're thinking about exercise, having all 3 of these as part of your weekly routine is another way to conceptualize that. Okay, is anyone new to exercise or doesn't really like it very much? You know, if we're at a place where our doctor has said, your cholesterol is high, I would like you to lose weight, or your heart rate is too elevated, exercise is an important key. If this is not something that has been part of your day-to-day existence, start with something small and then increase slowly. We also want to keep it safe. That can be anything from making sure that you wear tieable tennis shoes. We're not doing like the kids these days in our Crocs in sports mode or little flip-flops. It also means having someone with you, especially if you also have balance issues, making sure that your full step on and off the sidewalk is intentional. We are intentional with our steps and with making it fun. You're not going to exercise or do physical activity if you don't like it. So finding something that you really like to do. I mentioned the fitness device. Is anyone competitive like me? I like to know, yeah. That's why you have your fitness device? That's kind of why I have mine sometimes. You can look at your steps, your heart rate, your physical activity, your closing of the rings, all of those with that fitness device. Then there's a million out there. Has anyone played pickleball? Not yet? I got a couple yeses. I heard that this is the fastest growing sport in all of America. So here in Springboro, is there a local place that is, where do you guys go?
We just opened 6 new courts.
Did you?
And they are packed at all times. And I think leagues have formed.
Yes.
They are very busy.
Yes. Pickleball, if you haven't started it, I started playing with my family a couple years ago. And because I have knee issues along with everyone else, I can't go side to side on the full tennis court. So playing on the short court of the pickleball is really, really helpful. Although I have noticed that everybody plays by different rules. So make sure that you all have the rules set as you're going out. And that paddle, is anyone else like me where the first swing you took, you completely whiffed the ball? Because it's so much shorter. It's so much shorter than the tennis racket. So if it's not pickleball, find something else that you would enjoy, something new to try. There really are a lot of things out there. Okay. I was going to have us stand up and do a stretch break. Do you guys feel like you need it? How are we doing? Whether that's now or when you're sitting at the TV or does anyone still in the workforce? Yeah, taking your breaks. Making sure that you take a couple of minutes during that break time to do some stretching can really set you up for success, especially if you're at the computer. So take mindful stretching breaks. Do I have any questions so far? You like, yes? We should do it. I just said we should increase our flexibility, right? Any questions so far? Oh, yes.
Goes back a ways, but did you say that vision and eye care can be improved with exercise? Was that,
Yes.
can you say more about how that works?
I can say a little bit about that. So think about it in the way, so when we are physically active, our blood flow increases, and as the blood flow is pushing more against our veins and arteries, it releases something in there that is what Dr. Sears refers to as like your internal pharmacy. So while we try to eat blueberries and nuts and seeds and all those healthy things for antioxidants, exercise can release a lot of the similar types of things from our bloodstream. So because our eyes are also connected to that bloodstream, that's going to get some of those as well. That's a very simplistic way. It's called endolithium. There's your word of the day. We'll talk about that at the end if you have more questions. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? Okay. Now the section on nutrition, as we're working through the LEAN, nutrition, again, could be like a whole week conference that we talk about. So I'm not going to be giving you some specific diet to follow, but I want to give you a couple bits and pieces as you're trying to think through if I'm going to try and give myself some good resources in the next 10 years to follow, what are some places that I can start? I'm sure you've heard the term about processed foods, and to simplify that, processed foods, they have a lot of unhealthy fats, which are really bad for our cholesterol. Normally they come from animal products, so like meats and cheeses, high-fat dairy. They'll also come from trans fats, which are in our, probably I've got some in my croutons that are here, that we'll talk about here in a minute. They also are contain things like high fructose corn syrup and hydrogenated oils. Just even when saying those words, those are hard to get out, right? It means that the fats and the sugars in a lot of the processed foods have been actually chemically changed at the molecular level. Our bodies can't process it very well. So when we're eating a lot of things, whether it's over days, weeks, years, decades, our body's gonna get tired of us and be like saying, would you quit that? It's really hard on our bodies to process. There's also a lot of extra things when you hear of those like artificial flavors and colors when you read through all the nutrition ingredients, which we'll do here also in a second. They're just chemicals that sometimes we don't even know where they are, where they came from. They're not labeled in very particular ways. Although you guys have been in Europe, so have you had the mac and cheese in Europe? The Kraft macaroni is completely different over there because they have different rules on what is allowed in their ingredients list. So when we think about processed foods, it's not that we can never have the burger or the fries, but having the majority of our foods come from whole foods is the basic model that we want to follow. There's lots of nutrients in them. They have healthy fats, which is really good for our HDL. Do you guys get your blood tested on a regular basis? You have your blood work done? They're always testing cholesterol, and to a T, ever since COVID, the results that I have been seeing is that people's HDL, which is your good cholesterol, is low. So the foods that we're eating, the foods that we need to eat, things like healthy fats from avocados, nuts and seeds, olive oil, will help that, but also the physical activity that we just talked about will also help increase our HDL. So if you've been into that place where your doctor is constantly saying your HDL is low, all the things that we're talking about today can help with that. There's also complex carbohydrates, meaning that there's fiber alongside of the carbs that you're eating that helps to sustain your blood sugar over time. And as we look at whole foods versus processed foods, our label reading is going to be really, really important. So think about if you want to raise your hand to volunteer to look at some of my labels here in a minute. If you don't, that's okay, I'll look at them. But when we look at nutrition labels, there's a couple things that we want to highlight. First of all is the serving size, and I'll actually just do this. So everybody has peanut butter at home, most people? Obviously, I have lots of people in my household. We're eating lots of peanut butter. Unfortunately, this isn't the greatest thing for us to be eating. When we look at serving size, does anyone know what the proper serving size of peanut butter is?
2 tablespoons.
Yes, 2 tablespoons. In general, if I'm making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I'm probably using more than 2 tablespoons because it's good that way, right? So as we're looking at nutrition labels, we have to make sure that the numbers we're looking at line up to the actual serving size that we're having. That section on fats, when I mentioned before about the saturated and the trans fats, these are things that we don't want to have a lot of. So you notice that this one has, there's 8 total fats. We'll do a little math here, see if you guys already know this part. So if I am looking at my nutrition label and it says that there are 8 total fats in this item, I have 3 saturated fats, which are heart-clogging saturated fats. There's 0 trans fats, but it has a little teeny asterisk next to that. I wonder what that means. So where's the rest of the fat if it has 8 total? Anybody know? Okay. Our nutrition labels are only required to give us the unhealthy fats. So the total fat is all good and bad together. So there are 8 in this item, 3 of which are bad, which are those heart-clogging saturated fats. Now the trans fat, anyone ever see that asterisk before on nutrition labels? Anybody know where that comes from? So that asterisk came about a decade ago when the word kind of got out about how bad trans fats were for us. Do you remember those potato chips where they started changing the formula on them and everybody was getting like belly issues? Do you remember this? It was around that time where we started to understand that the trans fats are really not good for our system. And instead of the manufacturers changing the type of fat that they put in, they said, aha, we'll just give you less in the bag because it's only regulated that we have to give you a trans fat number if it's 1 or more. So if I have only 0.8 trans fat, that's what the asterisk is. It's not truly a 0. It just means that I don't have to report that. So even the front of the bag may say 0 trans fat. There's going to be a little asterisk next to that. So it used to be that we had larger size packages that would have 1 or 2 trans fats in them, but they don't want to have that on the label because now we're looking for it. So unfortunately, it's not helpful. So we have to be the detectives when we're reading our labels. The other thing that we don't want to have a lot of are those total sugars. So when we look at sugars, there are added sugars, which that's going to be like your white granulated sugars. Those are the ones that we really don't want. But has anyone ever seen how fiber works with carbohydrates? Does anyone count their fiber and carbohydrates together? No? If you are pre-diabetic or diabetic, one of the things that would be really good for you to look at on your labels are the carbohydrates and the fiber together. So there's something called your net carbs, so your net carbohydrates. It's just a simple subtraction. So if I have 37 grams of total carbohydrates in here, I can subtract 4 of the fiber, and that will leave me with 33. So if I'm counting my carbs, the fiber, the more that you can get, is really going to help. And that's because it helps our digestion. Our blood sugar stays stable longer as well. Okay, protein is the other really big piece that does some of the similar things for our blood sugar, but it also helps to regulate our hormone levels. It builds our muscles. So as we're doing our physical activity that we mentioned before with our strength bands and our weights, we have to have protein in order to create muscle. When we lift weights, those fibers actually tear in our body. In order to rebuild it stronger, protein is required. So you could be doing a whole bunch of activity, but if you're not getting enough protein, it's not going to give you the ultimate benefit. And lastly, when we look at the labels, all of the nutrition percentages are going to be a little trigger for us. And the only 2 that I'll mention are the sodium and the sugar. We want, for people who are diabetic, to have 10% or less of the sugars or carbs in their food. And also if you are on blood pressure medication and you need to be on a low sodium diet, again, 10% or less. If it says it's higher than 10%, then it's probably too high. A lot of the prepackaged items do have the low sodium content that you would reach for instead. Okay, so I have a couple items here. I think I'm just gonna, unless someone really wants to come forward and be on camera with me. I didn't think so. Okay, so if we're looking at our labels, I'm gonna start with the creme de la creme. This is pumpkin puree. This is gonna be the season that's coming. We're already into pumpkin spice. So when I look at my ingredients list, it's actually really, really hard to find on here. And the reason is it's only one ingredient, and it's pumpkin. There's literally nothing else in here. So if I wanted to go to think about a whole food, this counts. It has less than 40 ingredients, which is kind of what we're going for overall. It doesn't have any of these other like modified corn starches, the colors and sugars in here. It's just the pumpkin. So when we're thinking about choosing whole foods, it's not just the produce department that we're looking at. There are some good options in the can as well. I talked a little bit about the serving size of the peanut butter. One other thing I will mention about the peanut butter, though, is that it does have protein, it does have healthy fats, but it's also loaded in calories. So as we're making changes, trying to stabilize our blood sugar, eat more protein, if you're having a lot of something like this, the calorie increase can be pretty intense. So watching that serving size is important. The other thing I found in my pantry today is chicken noodle soup. Again, this is kind of like people are getting sick, have colds as the weather is changing, so maybe you have some chicken noodle soup in yours as well. When I look at the ingredients list, there's probably 25 ingredients in this little teeny can. So there are lots of options that you can choose that would have, less of those preservatives in there. The other thing that is pretty outstanding is the sodium content. Remember we talked about having the percentage of 10 or less for sodium. Anyone want to give a guess on how much percentage of sodium is in one serving? It's greater than 10, I'll give you that. You are so close. It is 28, yes. So 28, almost a third of my entire sodium content for the entire day would be in one serving of this. Okay, the other thing people tell me is like, I have started eating salads and I'm so healthy now. I'm seeing the laughter. But then what do we do to our salad? We put things like bacon bits and shredded cheese and croutons on it. So again, this was just fascinating to me. I can't even count the number of ingredients in here. I thought about this the other day when I went to a friend's house and someone made their own croutons. They just sliced up bread, put olive oil and salt on it, baked it, and they were the best croutons I had ever had. So doing something like that, instead of having this prepackaged, processed, high carb, highly processed food that has lots of those negative oils that are inflammatory in our system, why don't we just put these away? I know they're only like 99 cents, but getting the day-old bread and making your own might be a better option. Okay? Here we go. All right, putting that aside, there's another thing that you could try in the realm of nutrition. So we have something called mini meals or the rule of 2. Did anyone when they were younger hear that you have to chew your food like a certain amount of times before you swallow it? Yeah, this was a thing that my grandmother would tell me all the time. You're eating too fast, you need to chew your food more. In reality, there's some really good truth to that. So if we're talking about the rule of 2s, I know this is not popular in the idea of intermittent fasting currently. This is just another model to think of. We're going to be eating mini meals throughout the day, meaning smaller portions of balanced foods. We're going to eat twice as often, so instead of having a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you can add 2 to 3 snacks in there, minding that you're only eating half as much at each time. You're going to chew twice as long, and actually when you sit at the table, you're going to take your time. You're going to sit there. This is why I love the melting pot, because you sit there and just enjoy the meal, and it takes quite a long time. The other piece of that is, sometimes we just say, it's just time to eat, so I'm going to eat. So instead of that, listening to see if your body is actually hungry as you're getting started is a good way to go. The rule of twos and eating very frequently helps to increase your metabolism so that your body's constantly working on metabolizing your food, which can also help if you have some, thyroid issues. And for blood sugar as well. For people, again, struggling with pre-diabetes and diabetes, having those small meals along the way is going to help to keep things regulated. It also is going to improve your digestion and balance the hormones in addition. So has anyone seen this type of graph before about blood sugar? So when I eat something, let's say I'm the only person in my household who likes candy corn, but I do like candy corn. Is anyone else like me? No, I'm alone in the room. So if I'm going to Kroger, and okay, how about we talk about the Reese's peanut butter cups? Now we got somebody here. So if I'm going to have something that I'm really hungry, I haven't had something in a while, I'm at a real low. I can feel that I'm getting hangry, my energy is not there, my mental clarity is going down. Geez, I need something really quick as a pick-me-up. So I grab that candy corn or that, Halloween candy. I'm going to have a blood sugar spike really high, and I'm going to feel great for about 30 minutes. And then what happens with that sugar, it drops again. So when our blood sugar spikes, it feels like an energy high, but in reality, whenever we eat sugar and carbohydrates, that's the very first line of nutrients that our body uses as energy first. So if we have carbs and sugar in our system, that means to our body, yes, I'm going to burn that one first. So that's why it feels like I'm super energetic. I can make it through the next couple of hours. But by 2 o'clock, I've crashed again. So then I feel like now I need caffeine or I need more sugar. And as we do that throughout the day, or if we have like those big heavy meals a couple times a day, our blood sugar is going really high and really low throughout the whole entire day. Is anyone able to feel that difference when you have a lot of energy versus none? Yeah. Sometimes we just think, well, I didn't sleep well. There could be lots of other reasons for that. But if we take the holistic picture and think about what we're eating to fuel ourselves, this is going to be a big picture of that. So instead of having the big highs and the big lows, when we do something like mini meals, or we're eating whole foods with lots of protein and fiber, our graph is going to look a lot more like that blue one in the middle. We're going to have sustained energy throughout our day. Our digestion is going to continue, which stabilizes our blood sugar, which ultimately is what insulin's primary job is to do. So for those people who have to take shots of insulin, that's a whole nother layer of the piece of diabetes that we're trying to stay as level as possible over time. Any questions? I know this is a lot all at once. Okay. One other small thing I want to mention. We're going to go back to the beginning, which is L for lifestyle. And this could mean a lot of different things, but the one piece I want to pull out of it is how we work with our physicians. So if we've become in a place where, they just say, well, just take a pill, just take a medication. Sometimes medication is necessary and it's needed, and if our doctor prescribes it, we should take it. But instead of saying, doctor, what can I take for this, like all the commercials are trying to tell us to do, let's ask our doctor, what can I do in addition? And for the doctors, instead of saying just what can I prescribe, also saying what can I advise? It's going to be a partnership between the two of you. So instead of just one or the other, it becomes what's the pills and skills. And the skills are lots of the things that we've talked about today. So exercise and nutrition. So I wanted to open it up for you. Is there something that you notice that is what works best for you? Like if you are needing some energy, if you are wanting to affect your health positively, what is the best thing that you have found that has worked? Other than medication. Hydration, a glass of water. Cheers to that. Yes. Anything else? Yes.
I realized that caffeine helps my knees
Oh, really?
Caffeine, it must expand like the nerves or something, and it acts as a relaxant. Does that make sense?
I hear you. I just need caffeine to stay awake, but I like it. Does have other health benefits. Absolutely, yes. Anybody else have a good skill that they implement?
For me, exercise gives me energy.
Yeah, exercise gives you energy. Sometimes we get into the place where we feel like we're not able to exercise, so we don't. But then when we do, we figure, oh, this actually makes me feel better. So it's a matter of that movers versus sitters mindset that we talked about earlier, of just getting up and starting something new is going to create the cycle to help me feel better in the long run. Okay. Again, I just want to say that we're doing a both and in this category. Especially if you have a prescribed medicine, make sure you're taking it. I do also have people that come to me all the time that say, you know what, I feel better. I just decided I'm not going to take my medicine every other day, or I'm going to half it, or you know what, I just don't think I need it right now at all. And my first question is, have you talked to your doctor about that? There are certain medications that have to be taken every day at the same time. Blood pressure medicine would be one of those. But before you make any changes in your medications, please make sure you talk to your doctor about it. And I'm sure if things are going well, he or she would be more than happy to decrease that dosage for you. If you need assistance, finding a doctor, Premier Health can always help. We do have someone online and a phone number that you can call to get a reference, whether that's for you or anyone in your life or your community. We're out and about trying to help. So last but not least is just taking the time. We've talked about a lot of things today, the lifestyle, exercise, attitude, and nutrition. Hopefully there's at least one piece that you've been able to glean from those pieces that you can now say, I need to implement or take the time to plan for my health future. It just takes one thing. So it means that moving forward from today, there's one thing that you're actually going to follow up on. So you just make the decision on what you want that to be. And I really just want to thank you for having me in today. I hope that this has been helpful for you as well.